We're over here.
Rotate.
Swivel around.
They all know how to use their chairs now.
Yes, we got the
That's right.
tutorial. Mm-hmm. Hi again, everyone. I'd like to introduce Renee James. For those of you who don't know, she is the president of Intel, and like many Intel executives, has worn many different hats. You've been at Intel for most of your career, right? Perhaps one of her most challenging roles at the company was writing speeches for Andy Grove, the great Andy Grove, as his chief of staff quite a while back. And in preparing for this interview, I was asking an acquaintance who works at Intel how she would grade what you and Brian Krzanich, your CEO, have done over the last year plus since you've taken over the company. And her response to me, so I can't use the expression that she used because it's not appropriate for this audience, but let's just say she said, you both have guts and have made some very bold moves. And she also said that the jury's still out on whether or not those moves will pay off. But at the end of the day, people will know who to blame. So my question to you is, can you share with us, kind of walk us through, since taking over last May 2013, what changes have you and Brian made in the company?
I'm going to do my best succinctly. It's almost easier to say what we haven't done. We both have been at Intel a long time. Our combined tenure is, close to 60 years. So we decided, who better than us to make the changes? Some of them gut-wrenching. I mean, like Hans had to get out of phones. We have to do things as well. We started with a focusing of the business and really asking ourselves, who are we and what are we really about? Mm-hmm. And who we really are and what has always been true and constant about us is that we're the leader in semiconductor technology. And then from that came, and how will people use the basic building block of technology over the course of the next couple of decades? And do we have our resources pointed in that direction? And the question, was, I think, the right one. And some of the answers were no, and some were yes. Some were not quite enough. And so you've seen this shift to really focusing on what we think is this next wave of integrated computing. And it comes out of this ultra-mobility of general purpose compute being everywhere, being integrated into your life, into your car, into your home, into what you wear, into everything, and it not being a task, but being available in the background. And so you see us really focused on lower power and highly integrated and building the best-in-class intellectual property in that area. So that was the other thing. When we did our assessment, we said we are a leader in semiconductors, which is the building block of the future, and we're an IP, we're inventors. That's what we do. Are we really inventing the future right now? Mm-hmm. Shouldn't we really be thinking about
What was your answer to that question?
Some yes, some no. Mm-hmm. I think it was mixed, really, and that helped us focus. So we've really focused our resources. We've done a lot of, things that people are complaining internally about and budget kind of things, but we also went to work on the organization and flattening the organization out and, kind of looking at our policies and our operating procedures, many of which Andy put in place when he was COO for 15 to 16 years, and we hadn't done anything with them in almost 40 years. Do we really need to do it that way anymore, or is there a different way to be doing it with a different point of view about speed and agility and decision making? Mm-hmm. So that's where a lot of the changes have been.
You've tried to make it so that people and the various division leaders are held accountable more, and a lot of them report directly to you and Brian.
They do.
Right? Mm-hmm. What other changes organizationally have you made that you can?
We made a lot of changes to comp and benefits. We made a lot of changes to how we incent people, how our bonus system works. We tied the bonus, we were on a one corporate bonus. I mean, this is, kind of basic management kinds of things, but it really does affect the behavior and the output of the organization. And we went back to a bonus that had a mix of business unit specific objectives as well as corporate, profitability kinds of things. And that mix had historically existed in Intel. We moved away from that. And I think that allows us to really follow through the accountability all the way down to the operating units.
So there's been a lot written, including by myself and those of us at Fortune, about sort of what went wrong at Intel and how could Intel have missed mobile.
Yeah.
Can you give your take on that? You've watched several CEOs now.
I have.
You were there under Paul Otellini, the most recent CEO. What's your take on what went wrong?
Well, we're very successful, and success can breed some complacency and fear. And the first wave of mobile, Wi-Fi and laptops, we led. We led in Centrino. We had initiatives to put Wi-Fi hotspots into hotels and airports and all sorts. I mean, that was an initiative that Intel spent money on to really fuel mobility. We invested tremendous amount of money into the packaging and the ability to get longer battery life, fine. And we were very successful with that. And I think that, what we didn't fully anticipate was devices becoming general purpose compute. We sell general purpose compute for a living. That's what we do. We sell the best general purpose compute on earth. And a bunch of discrete devices became general purpose compute environments, much of which was fueled by Android and having a general purpose operating environment, having general purpose applications environment. Certainly the Apple ecosystem gave us, kind of a guiding light, but it spread, and I think we missed that. I mean, we were slow to that.
Did Paul Otellini not foresee that the iPhone would be as I mean, I know a lot of people didn't, but those conversations were taking place pre-2007, right? How could a company like Intel have missed that opportunity?
I think it's all about your point of view, right? I mean, not to be too academic, but it's a little bit like saying, how could the railroad industry not figure out that the highway system was coming, right? They're in transportation. We thought of it as the phone business. We aren't in the phone business. What we didn't fully appreciate is the iPhone was the advent of small general purpose compute, integrated computing, ultra-mobile computing, where people were going to have everything that they wanted to do with them at some level of performance. It might not be the top level of performance, but maybe that was okay. You see what I'm saying? So I think that it was a point of view about what that device did versus what it was capable of doing, and how people used it, and how it changed how people use compute.
You were saying backstage, and by the way, the green room is a very interesting place right now. We've got like Satya Nadella and Walter Isaacson and Hans Vestberg and Renee and Paul Moritz talking about all this stuff. So it was an interesting
We're having our own.
This. Yeah. Sorry, we can't have everybody go back there. But you were saying that this isn't unlike other transformations that Intel has gone through.
Well, one of the things about Intel is that we're very good at focusing and executing when we're clear. And so part of what Brian and I have been doing is getting super clear, right? A legendary transition was written about quite a bit in Andy's book, the book he wrote when I was working for him, and I had to read it over and over and over again, so you'd think I'd know it when I saw it, about strategic inflection points. And he talked a lot about this exercise called the revolving door, where he and Gordon had to decide to get out of memories at a time when there was so much, crushing pressure from the Japanese, and went out the door. They said, if we were the new management team, the board brought in new management, and they sent us out the door, and we came in as the new people, that's the revolving door, what would we do? Unencumbered by our past. And I think a lot of what Brian and I are doing is trying to be, like we went through the revolving door. But we're smarter than that because we've been there, so we know what the capabilities are to move us to the future. And so that, I think, the company has a culture of reinvention, and we're in that phase. Where, we have a point of view about integrated computing. We have a point of view about how how computing is going to be resident, what needs to happen to make that true. We know these are decade-long investments, and that's why you see Brian talking so much about wearables and the passion that we have for lower power and really using our technology in different areas. On the other end of it, on the cloud, we see the kind of performance and capability that we bring is now moving out of compute across the network into storage, network. The discussion that Hans was talking about, it revolutionizes the capacity and deployment and availability of networks. So those are, I think, the kind of the two ends of the spectrum.
So this is a monster of a transformation, though, and you talked to a lot of
It is.
visionaries in the industry. And
Cultural,
everybody's
technology,
and well, and
corporate.
mobile, and specifically though, I mean, a lot of people are saying that this is the biggest transformation globally. So, is it any different from your perspective?
Well, I don't think I'm smart enough to know the answers to that. I mean, Industrial Revolution, I don't know. I mean, there have been other big transformations.
But in terms of the challenges that it presents to Intel?
For us personally, I think it's not. I think that we have the capability and the ability to retarget, and we've done it. I mean, if you look at our product lines and our objectives in tablets and where we're going and how much we've accomplished in the single year, we have the ability to use what we do in a very different way. And it's just a matter of making the decision to do it, because it's a different business than the one we've been in, but we've taken that on. I mean, Brian and I have really taken that on. I think one of the things you have to think about is we've spent the greater part of the last 40 plus years applying semiconductor technology to compute as an application. And I think in the next decade, next couple of decades looking out, and we see Moore's Law going on, which is the semiconductor technology going forward, we are going to see technology migrate from just being applied to compute to being applied to all new different areas like biomedical, and other great challenges. And I think that's pretty exciting.
So and I'm sure this is a topic that's going to come up again and again and again over the next couple of days. One of the changes, the differences this time around seems to be that, for years you battled one opponent, right?
Yep.
And the focus was on transistors and Moore's Law. And nowadays you've got this whole ecosystem of players that you're up against in mobile and in wearables and Internet of Things and all of it, right? What makes you think that Intel is well suited in that respect? Forget the technology side.
I think it goes without saying we're a very competitive company.
I've heard.
Yeah. We have, in our point of view, the way we think about things is the best technology. In technology, the best technology usually wins at some point. And we have not had the best technology in mobile. We think we do now. And it's all about having the right intellectual property and the right things to apply to that market and taking...
You're getting a sign for it. This happens every year, I think.
Does it? And getting and taking the thing that we're world class at in an undisputed way, the semiconductor technology, and applying it to mobile. And so I think I think it becomes not a serious rain.
I don't think you're going to fly out anytime soon.
Are we getting a rain delay? Oh my word.
Renee was, by the way, delayed coming out here and had to land in
Rifle, Colorado. Actually, I took a video so that I could document my trip to Rifle, Colorado to show you. Should we stop talking? Can you hear us still? Yeah?
I think we're good. Just use your loud voice. I know you can do it.
My mom voice?
Yeah, use your mom.
I have a really loud voice. Anyway, I think, for us, the gut-wrenching transformation was to tell the company that we were going to take that thing that we know and love, and we're still going to do everything we used to do.
Yeah.
And we're going to do this new thing that is taking that technology and thinking about it differently. It's not that it couldn't be done. It's not that we don't have the capability. It's the thinking. It's the imagining. If you didn't want to be the highest performance, you wanted to be the lowest power. If you want, you see what I'm saying? And really rethinking. You want to be the highest integrated, not the most elegant, the fastest.
You also, one of the interesting things about your background, hopefully you guys can all hear me. We're good? Okay.
It's outrageous, really.
So one of the interesting things about your background is that you come from more of the software side of things.
I do.
Can you talk about what advantages that gives you today, given the position that Intel is in?
Well, I think most people in the audience from the technology industry know that the predominance of what we do is software today, from the chip design layout all the way through the automation of the factories and the software work around the platform. It's really.
This thing is very solid. Don't worry.
I'm not worried. It's just loud. So it's gonna pass.
I think everybody can hear us, so we're good.
Yeah.
Well, no.
Not so much.
Yeah, I can raise your hand if you can hear me.
All right, we'll
You're
keep
good,
talking.
okay? Keep going.
Anyway, you said earlier, everybody wants to be a platform. And actually, we are a platform.
Right.
But the great news is everyone can live above us. But in order to get that right, you have to work with all of these wonderful companies that are here in all these new software applications. Fabulous. The network is a software application today. So we have a huge software effort and security, right? We went big into security, storage, network. It's all software.
Yeah.
So we need to do our part, even to get it right in the hardware.
No, not all of the initiatives that you've spearheaded or have been a part of at Intel have succeeded.
No.
No. Can you talk about some of those in the past, sort of what?
Epic failures?
Yes.
Oh, okay. The rain stopped so I could talk about my personal failures.
This is like
I love this.
classic.
This is great. I'm glad it's on the record.
Tell us how you failed
silence.
in the past.
Let me talk about failure. So, if you want to be successful in technology, you have to take risks. If you don't take risks and you don't fail, you don't learn anything. And one of the I'm going to call it my biggest failure. I had this idea. I'd been working in the software group for a long time. I'd been working on high performance compute. And it occurred to me, because I was working on the migration to a standard Unix, which became standard Linux, that we could actually migrate applications and abstract them, and that the unit of computing could, in the data center, really could be the rack. And that what we should do is we should really think about being in the data center business. Right?
This is what year?
1996, 97. And so I wrote a business plan, which I presented to our board of directors, and they funded. And then Andy said, well, that's your next job. So I was the COO, and I built data centers and ran data centers and tried to build an OSS and BSS, which I'm sure Hans knows all about, which are hard, at a time when we just didn't have the tools and the infrastructure to really pull it off, but it was strategically correct. And one of the things that I learned from it was being right too soon is almost as bad as being wrong, because we overinvested. And and if we could have hung on to the work and kind of been more patient with it, we would have been really far ahead on cloud. Not to say we're not doing well in cloud. I'm just saying that that was, and for me, I learned an awful lot because I asked for a small amount of money and I was given way more than that, and I wasn't a mature enough manager to say no. Too much money too soon, no good.
Well, let's go back to some of what you are doing today with mobile, with wearables, Internet of Things. You mentioned that you feel like you are in a good place today. I want to challenge you.
In a better place.
A better place,
Yeah.
sure. But I want to challenge you on that and tell us a bit. There have been wins here and there, and there have been products with Intel chips, mobile products with Intel chips, and some more wins on the tablet side for sure. But where do things stand today? And then maybe we can talk about wearables. I also want to take questions from all of you, so please prepare.
So I want to tell you everything, and we announce tomorrow. Our
Yes.
earnings are tomorrow. So there'll be lots of things to hear tomorrow. But one thing that we have been public about is our goal to get to 40 million tablets this year. And we are well on our goal, and we've said that publicly. That's not new news. And all with, of course, Intel products in them. And the other thing that's really important in mobile, and maybe in some ways I could argue way more important, is communications. So we announced at MWC our 4G LTE, advanced LTE carrier aggregation, all the things that Hans talked about. And that product is doing well, and we're happy about that because I think the comms piece is equally important when you're building an integrated part as the compute. So.
On the wearables side, you've been very vocal about that. Brian Krzanich has been very vocal about that.
He has a lot of passion for it.
Yes, I can see.
Personal passion for it, yeah.
He went to the Maker Fair, right?
Yes, and he participates, and he and his daughter build things, and it's really fun because he has a big personal passion for it.
And one of your recent announcements, I think just last week, was this alliance for the Internet of Things, right?
Right.
For interoperability, standardization. Qualcomm, I believe there's somebody here from Qualcomm in the audience.
A software person.
Qualcomm has their own alliance, which they announced a little while back. Yeah. Why can't we all just get along? Why can't you guys play in the same sandbox?
I think you should ask him.
Okay, Rob, why can't you play in the same sandbox? Can we get a microphone over?
Is this the part where we get controversial? I read about that in the briefing. Now that the rain's ended, we have silence. We talked about my failure. Let's talk about this.
It's all premeditated.
Yeah, I know.
So why are you, do you have a microphone, Rob? Yeah. No, why is the need for, let's get your take and we'll get Renee's
Really,
take.
we're going to do this here?
Why do we need to?
That's why
Hi,
we're
Renee,
here.
I'm Rob.
Hi, Rob. Nice to meet you. This is why we're here.
To talk.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping that at some point Renee and I will be sitting down and we'll be talking about how we can merge the two alliances, because I don't think it actually will be great for the industry or consumers to have multiple standards. So we have our different approaches, but I'm looking forward to seeing if we can work those out.
All right. Well, Renee, maybe you can explain to everyone what we're even talking about here. What is the need for interoperability, and what is it that you guys are trying to bring together?
So what we're talking about is the protocol that allows the network and devices to see each other and transfer data and applications transparently. And getting that to a single spec that everybody, all the handset manufacturers, all the software operating system environments, all of the network service providers, and network equipment manufacturers, we all align on this, means that those of you who've complained that your things don't automatically get recognized and you cannot move an application from one place to another, we theoretically could actually make that work at some point in our life. Mm-hmm. So we're going to work on the thing that frustrates consumers and users the most. And it needs to scale from the Internet of Things all the way up through general purpose PC compute, and it's complicated, and I'm hoping that we will actually converge and that there will be one. I think it's important for the industry. And I think that, we come from different points of view, but we need to make it work because it frustrates our users.
Well, this happens in technology repeatedly, right?
Yes.
At some point.
Yes.
At some point, you gotta
Yes.
play nice. So
everything repeats itself in this business. Yeah.
I wanted to see if there are other. I think there are some questions back there. Can you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, Miguel Hell from Fortune. Renee, I wanted to ask you about something we haven't talked about, which is the PC.
Uh-huh.
There was a sort of catastrophic decline over a few quarters.
Uh-huh.
Now things seem to be stabilizing a little bit. Give us your take on where the PC is going in the next 2 to 3 to 5 years. And I know it's hard to talk about different OEMs because I'm sure you love them all, but why are some like Lenovo killing it and others doing really poorly?
So Miguel, you do realize we're living in a post-PC era, right?
Yeah, but I believe PC still matters.
All right, so give us your...
I think, so again, notwithstanding the quiet period and not talking about how the business conditions are, and certainly won't talk about my customers, what's happening is we're seeing that there are applications that require compute, and there's a demand for compute, and we're seeing a lot of overlap beginning, and I think it's going to be the next couple of years before we really know, between what's a high-performance tablet versus a 7 or 8-inch tablet, right? Mm-hmm. What's a high-performance tablet? What's a 2-in-1? What's a tablet with a keyboard? What really happens in what I lovingly call that little seam of compute. And so we're seeing a lot of experimentation in form factor. We're seeing a lot of innovation. Mm-hmm. And actually, I'm excited about it because it's the first time we've seen things that we would expect to see leap forward. The use of high-definition 3D cameras, the voice recognition, which we've worked on for the greater part of 20 years, finally happening, touch becoming usable at the applications level in a meaningful way. Mm-hmm. It's really starting to become part of the experience. So the experience is evolving, the form factor's evolving, more innovation in the last 3 or 4 years in the entire category than we've seen.
But you guys have been talking about reinventing the PC obviously for a long time, and 2-in-1s and these hybrid devices, and I don't see them. I don't see them around. I mean, I just don't see them around me. I see iPads. And I'm sorry, I know Satya Nadella is here. I'm sure we'll talk about Surface too, but I don't see them around. So where are people buying them, and what companies, what manufacturers are having?
So everybody
success?
builds them, everyone that you would imagine, and they're sold all over the world. Mm-hmm. They're sold online. They're sold in retail. They're sold at Walmart.
Is there growth? Is there growth in this area?
Yeah. So again, I mean, I think that tomorrow we'll have a lot to say on that.
Uh-huh. Other questions that Renee can answer?
That I can answer.
Over here.
Hi, I'm Patrick O'Hara from Gyro. I love Only the Paranoid Survive, and I'm very interested in the idea of how this concept of constructive paranoia was sort of ingrained into Intel. And was that somehow lost for a while, and has it come back now, and how would you maintain it into the future?
Well, I think it was personality driven in the beginning, and then a lot of, as I said, of our cultural norms and our operating procedures were established by Andy when he was the chief operating officer, which the predominance of his career, that was his job, and nothing changed when he became president or CEO. So I think it's ingrained into the culture to always do a competitive analysis, to always imagine someone's better than you, to imagine you don't actually know the answer. And I think when really smart people could admit that they're wrong, or that they may not have the right answer, or that maybe, someone else could be as good as us, even though we have, empirical data that says that we're pretty far ahead of our competitors in lots of areas, we assume they're going to catch us at any moment. And that's part of the culture of who we are, which I think is what has sustained the company for so long. And I don't think we lost it. I think we didn't apply it as evenly as we could. Because if you look at where we are in the semiconductor part of the business, we're getting further ahead than we have ever been. And we didn't lose a beat, right? If you look at in the server business what we accomplished in the last several years. So you really have to look segment by segment at the different parts of the business. But I do think it's a big part of who we are. I think it is one of the things that's made it a great company. And I assure you it's alive and well, certainly in me. It's been beat into me over 30
Was it
years.
Andy or somebody else that described Intel's culture as a bunch of aggressive introverts?
Oh, I don't know if that was Andy or not, maybe.
Does that describe what you've seen accurately? By the way, and I wanted to read.
We have a lot of engineers.
Andy Grove has described you as bullheaded, impatient, and very smart. Is that an accurate depiction there, would you say? Has that helped you move up at Intel? The bullheadedness?
Yes, I suppose it might have.
Might have had
it's a tough business, semiconductors. And not to, I love going to the most powerful women, and I don't know where Patty is, but, and I don't see a lot of other women in semiconductors. I'm going to just say that. So I'm going to think that maybe that helped me. All of us.
Helped you or hindered you?
Helped.
Helped, being a woman.
But a lot of us are this way at Intel. I don't think he's describing me uniquely. I think he's describing, kind of who we are. Mm-hmm. We sometimes are kind of a tough group. And you could ask Paul Moritz some of these questions, because he used to work at Intel too.
Yes, I'm sure Adam Lashinsky will. Other questions from the audience?
Yes, Michael Miller from PC Magazine. You mentioned that Moore's Law is alive and well, but obviously the 14 nanometer production is running about a year behind when you originally said it was. And a lot of people not only at Intel, but at TSMC and at all the other firms are seeing what seemed to be a slowdown in the turn between generations. Is that just happening now because of the technology transition that's happening, or is this something we can expect going forward?
Well, we demonstrated 14 nanometer parts, I think, and you saw this at Computex, and we've talked a lot about that. We don't expect it to be slowing down per se. It is obvious into the industry that it is getting harder, although we don't see it ending, and we see our way clear for several generations. It has, and it's not any harder for us than it is for anybody else. I think that's a shared comment about the dimensions at which we're operating and where all of us are going. But we don't see it slowing down, notwithstanding the 14 nanometer.
Okay, unfortunately, on that 14 nanometer note, we have to end. We are out of time. Thank you so much for being here. Safe travels back to Rifle, Colorado.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you so much. You good?
Thank you.